What do you think of this?
It's perfect.
All right, let's get it.
Definitely.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. After finding out that Diem is pregnant, Toan can hardly hide his happiness. That very same day, he took her to a baby store to pick out the first clothes for their child. The tiny shirts, the little socks no bigger than the palm of a hand. Everything makes them both emotional and excited. But the moment that surprises Toan the most is when he holds the first tiny outfit for his baby in his hands. That's when it truly hits him that he's about to become a father. The two of them then head to the supermarket to buy diapers, milk, and other essentials for the baby. The atmosphere is joyful and full of hope for a new future. But will Toan and Diem's journey into parenthood really be as smooth as it seems? Stay until the end of the video to witness this unforgettable moment. And if you enjoy touching stories like this, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes about Toan and Diem's journey. The test results rest in Toan's hands, but the feeling now is no longer as heavy as it was just a few hours earlier. When the doctor confirmed everything, the two of them were almost speechless. The worry they had carried throughout the long wait suddenly disappeared, replaced by a sense of relief and happiness spreading through their hearts. As they step out of the hospital, the midday sunlight seems warmer than usual. Diem gently places her hand on her belly, her eyes shimmering. Toan looks at her, then at the hand resting there. A strange feeling rises inside him, something both sacred and deeply emotional. It's not just a baby, it's their future. Without much discussion, Toan suggests they stop by a children's clothing store near the town market. The car pulls up in front of a small, charming shop filled with tiny outfits in every color. As they walk in, both of them smile almost at the same time. The place is full of little items so small and adorable that anyone seeing them would feel their hearts soften. Diem slowly walks along the clothing racks, gently touching the soft fabrics. Tiny shirts, cute knitted hats, little socks, no bigger than the palm of a hand. Everything makes her feel even more clearly the presence of the small life growing inside her. Toan stands beside her, picking up a pale yellow outfit. He holds it up in front of him, imagining their baby wearing it. The thought makes him chuckle softly. Diem turns to look at him, her eyes filled with joy. The two of them begin choosing outfits carefully one by one. Some are pure white, others a soft light blue. Diem prefers simple soft clothes, while Toan is drawn to the ones with cute little animal prints. Each time they place another outfit into the basket, they exchange bright, happy glances. All the worries from earlier seem to have completely disappeared. In their place is the excitement of two people preparing to become parents for the first time. In that moment, Toan suddenly realizes that his life has truly changed. From someone who has always had to face hardships and unexpected turns, he now stands in a small shop, choosing clothes for a child who hasn't even been born yet. Diem hugs the small bag of baby clothes to her chest as they prepare to leave the store. Outside, the sunlight still stretches across the street. They step out together, smiling with quiet happiness. A new journey has just begun. After picking out the tiny outfits they both loved, Toan and Diem carried their basket to the checkout counter. Inside were soft onesies, a few tiny knit hats, and little socks, no bigger than the palm of a hand. Looking at them neatly sitting in the basket, Diem couldn't help but smile. She gently smoothed out a white outfit with a small teddy bear on it as if their baby were already right in front of her. The store clerk carefully folded each piece of clothing and placed them into a bag. When the cash register made the familiar beep, Toan opened his wallet to pay. He took the bag from the clerk, and a quiet sense of pride flickered across his face. These weren't just a few baby clothes. They were the first things he had ever bought for his child. After leaving the store, the two stepped out onto the busy street. The air outside felt cooler, and a light breeze made their mood even more pleasant. But Toan wasn't ready to stop there. It suddenly occurred to him that clothes alone wouldn't be enough. A baby on the way would need many other things, so they decided to stop by a large supermarket nearby. The automatic doors slid open, revealing bright lights and long rows of shelves that made Diem pause in surprise. They grabbed a small shopping cart and began walking through the aisles for mothers and babies. In front of them were countless items: baby bottles, soft towels, wipes, diapers, formula, and even small, adorable blankets. Toan stopped in front of the diaper shelf, carefully reading each label like a real father searching for the best option for his child. Diem stood beside him, occasionally nodding when he seemed to find a suitable one. In the end, they placed several packs of newborn diapers into the cart. Next was the baby formula section. Dozens of cans lined the shelves, making both of them take their time deciding. Toan carefully read through the information on each one, while Diem chose the brand she felt most comfortable with. Slowly, the cart began to fill up diapers, formula, soft towels, a few small baby bottles, and even a thin blanket for a newborn. Each item placed into the cart felt like a quiet confirmation that their baby was becoming a very real part of their lives. When they looked at the cart full of baby items, Toan and Diem couldn't help but laugh. They had never imagined that one day they would be standing in a supermarket, carefully choosing tiny things with such excitement. But in that simple moment, both of them felt it more clearly than ever. A new life was waiting for them ahead. When they returned home after their shopping trip, Toan and Diem stepped into their small house feeling completely different. The atmosphere seemed warmer, filled with joy and anticipation. On the table were the bags they had just brought back from the supermarket and the baby clothing store. Diem gently took the tiny outfits out of the bags, one by one. The little shirts, the small socks, and the soft knitted hat made her smile without even realizing it. She carefully folded each piece neatly and placed them into the small drawer that Toan had prepared earlier. Toan didn't stay idle either. He placed the packs of diapers, the cans of formula, and the other baby supplies neatly on the shelf. Each item was arranged carefully, as if they were the most precious things in the house. Looking at those tiny things, Toan could clearly feel that his life was about to change completely. While the two of them were busy organizing everything, the sound of familiar footsteps suddenly came from outside the yard. Thu had just arrived. He walked into the house and immediately sensed that something was different. His eyes stopped on the neatly folded baby clothes on the table. Toan looked at Diem for a moment and then gave a small smile. Finally, he decided to share the news that both of them had been keeping in their hearts all day. Slowly, he told Thu everything that had happened at the hospital, from the ultrasound to the test results. And most importantly, the baby in Diem's womb was his child. Thu stood still for a few seconds, as if he hadn't fully processed the story yet. But when he saw the happy smile on Toan's face and the bright look into Diem's eyes, he understood everything. Inside the small house, the joy seemed to spread everywhere. A tiny life not yet born, but already making their world feel more complete than ever. Thu stood quietly in the middle of the room for a moment, still taking in everything Toan had just said. His eyes slowly moved from the folded baby clothes on the table to the shelves filled with diapers and baby supplies. Then he looked at Diem, who was gently holding one of the tiny hats in her hands. For a few seconds, the room was completely silent. Then suddenly Thu let out a soft laugh. "Well, I guess congratulations are in order," he said, shaking his head with a smile. Toan chuckled, a little embarrassed, but clearly happy. Diem looked up, her eyes warm and bright. Thu walked over to the table and picked up a small pair of baby socks. They were so tiny that they barely covered the width of his palm. "Is this really for a baby?" he asked jokingly. Diem nodded with a soft laugh. "Yes, newborns are really that small." Thu looked at the socks again, clearly amazed. "I can't believe it," he said. "Toan, you're going to be a dad." The words hung in the air for a moment. Toan had heard them before from the doctor from Diem, but hearing someone else say it made the reality sink in even deeper. He rubbed the back of his neck and smiled. "Yeah, I guess I am." Thu suddenly stepped forward and gave Toan a firm hug. "Congratulations, brother," he said sincerely. "This is amazing news." Toan laughed and patted his back. "Thanks." When they pulled apart, Thu turned to Diem with a respectful smile. "And congratulations to you too," he said. "You must be really happy." Diem nodded gently. "I am. It still feels a little unreal, but I'm very happy." Thu looked around the house again, noticing how carefully everything had been arranged. The baby clothes, the supplies, the small corner they had started preparing. "You two didn't waste any time," he joked. Toan shrugged. "Well, when you hear news like that, you start thinking about a lot of things." Diem added softly, "We just wanted to be ready." Thu leaned against the table and crossed his arms. "So, when did you find out for sure?" Toan explained briefly about the hospital visit, the ultrasound, and the moment the doctor confirmed the pregnancy. Thu listened closely, occasionally nodding. "That must have been a big moment," he said. "It was," Toan replied. "I don't think I've ever been that nervous in my life." Diem laughed softly. "He was more nervous than I was." "That's not true," Toan protested. "You kept pacing outside the examination room," she teased. Thu burst out laughing. "I wish I could have seen that." Toan sighed dramatically. All right. Maybe I was a little nervous." The three of them laughed together, and the room felt even warmer. After a while, Thu walked toward the shelf where the baby supplies were stacked neatly. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "a baby changes everything." Toan nodded slowly. "I know, but it's a good change," Thu continued. "A really good one." He picked up a small baby bottle and examined it. "You're going to have sleepless nights. Diapers everywhere, crying at 3 in the morning." Toan groaned playfully. "Thanks for the encouragement. But you'll also have something better than all of that," Thu said with a smile. "What's that?" Diem asked. "Your child calling you mom and dad for the first time." The room fell quiet again, but this time it was a comfortable silence. Diem instinctively placed a hand on her belly. Toan noticed and gently placed his hand over hers. Thu smiled when he saw the gesture. "You two are going to be great parents," he said sincerely. Diem looked a little shy. "I hope so." "You will," Thu replied confidently. "I can tell already." Toan gestured toward the couch. "Sit down for a bit. We were just about to make tea." "That sounds perfect," Thu said. A few minutes later, the three of them were sitting around the small table with cups of hot tea. The conversation flowed naturally. They talked about baby names. They talked about the future. They talked about how life would soon become very different. Have you thought about names yet? Thu asked. Toan glanced at Diem. We talked about it a little, but we haven't decided anything yet, she added. Thu grinned. Well, whatever name you choose, the baby is already lucky. Toan raised an eyebrow. Why do you say that? Because the baby will grow up in a home full of love. Diem smiled softly. That's what we want the most. Thu looked around the house again. You know, this place is going to feel very different once the baby arrives. How so? Toan asked. There will be toys everywhere, Thu said. Crayons on the table, little footsteps running around, and probably a lot of noise. Toan laughed. That actually sounds pretty nice. It will be Thursday, said. Diem looked toward the small drawer where the baby clothes had been placed earlier. I keep imagining what the baby will look like, she said quietly. Toan or you? Thu asked. She smiled. Maybe a little of both. Toan joked, hopefully more like her. Why? Thu asked. So the baby will be good looking, Toan said confidently. Diem laughed and lightly nudged him. You're impossible. The room filled with laughter again. As the evening light slowly faded outside, the small house felt more alive than ever. For a long time, it had simply been a quiet place where Toan lived his ordinary life. But now something had changed. Now it held dreams, hope, and the promise of a new life. Thu finished his tea and stood up. Well, he said, stretching his arms, I should probably let the future parents get some rest. Toan stood as well. Thanks for coming by. Of course, Thu replied. He turned to Diem one more time. Take good care of yourself, he said kindly. I will. And if you ever need anything, he added, just let me know. Toan nodded gratefully. We will. Before leaving, Thu looked once more at the tiny baby clothes on the table. A gentle smile appeared on his face. Life is funny, he said. How so? Toan asked. One day you're just living your normal life, Thu replied. And the next day, you find out you're going to be responsible for an entire human being. Toan chuckled. When you put it that way, it sounds a little scary. It's not scary, Thu said. It's beautiful. He opened the door and stepped outside. The evening air was calm, and the sky was slowly turning orange as the sun began to set. Inside the house, Toan and Diem stood quietly for a moment. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Toan gently wrapped an arm around Diem's shoulders. She leaned slightly against him. Their eyes moved toward the small drawer where the baby clothes were stored. Do you think we're ready? Diem asked softly. Toan thought for a moment. Then he smiled. Maybe not completely, but we'll learn. Diem nodded. Yes, we will. Outside, the last light of the day faded slowly. Inside the little house, two future parents stood together quietly, imagining the life that was about to begin. A life filled with laughter, with challenges, with sleepless nights, and with more love than they had ever known before.